I'm Chuck Quigley. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Civic Education. I began with the center in 1965 at UCLA. It was part of an interdisciplinary committee formed by the Dean of the Law School, the Chairman of the Political Science Department, the Dean of the School of Education. And that was the time of the Warren Court, when there was tremendous amount of, when the Warren Court was incorporating provisions of the Bill of Rights under the 14th Amendment and making them applicable to the states. And these were primarily due process provisions having to do with protections of the individual against misuse of police power, unfair trials, and so forth. And there was such a nationwide controversy about it that there became a movement that was called, civic education, law-related education at that time, focusing upon the Bill of Rights and helping students understand the fundamental principles underlying the Bill of Rights and helping them develop the capacity to discuss these kinds of issues intelligently. What happened was that the Justice Brennan on the Supreme Court had a meeting here in about 1963, just at a conference center outside of Washington, D.C., attended by law school deans from throughout the United States and leading professors of constitutional law. And he was interested in doing something about public lack of understanding of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. So all of those deans and law school professors went back to their universities and started instigating programs. And the dean of the law school at UCLA was one of the people that attended those meetings. So he and the chairman of the political science department got together with the dean of the School of Education and started a committee on civic education. And that committee is what was the genesis of our current Center for Civic Education. The James Madison Legacy Project is focused upon one of the greatest needs in civic education, and that is the professional development of teachers of civics and government, providing them the background in political science, political history, and constitutional law that's required to teach these subjects effectively in the classroom at upper elementary, middle, and high school levels. And one of the problems with nationwide professional development is the cost. One of the most effective ways to do good professional development is to have a very knowledgeable scholar who understands the needs of high school and elementary school teachers and can present them the content they need in the kind of language that's relatively easy for them to understand. So they gain the content from the scholar, and then you need master teachers or mentor teachers to help the teachers translate that content into useful lessons in the classrooms. So the James Madison program addresses that goal, but it also is using an innovative approach where there are only so many scholars to go around, and there are millions of teachers in the United States, 3 million teachers approximately. Hundreds of thousands of those are responsible for teaching civics and government. The question is, how do you get an effective professional development program readily available to those people in the most remote parts of the United States? So that's why we decided what we would try to do is to videotape the scholars and put them online in highly interactive presentations of content broken into bite-sized, readily digestible sections of content followed by interactive exercises. And that's what we're doing. We're comparing that program that can be used by master teachers with the video tapes taking place of the person-to-person or face-to-face interaction with the scholars, and see how that compares with the traditional scholar-mentor approach. It leads students into an inquiry into their heritage, their constitutional heritage, and starting with the most fundamental things, and that is the underlying philosophy of our constitutional system. And so they study, for example, the We the People curriculum is divided into 6 units. The first unit is the philosophical underpinnings of the American political system. And so they study John Locke and the natural rights philosophy. The natural rights philosophy, as it's so eloquently encapsulated in the first sentence of the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, and so forth. So they get an understanding of that philosophy, which is one of the probably the primary philosophy that has influenced American political thought, American culture, but they also study classical republicanism. In the natural rights philosophy, the emphasis is upon the rights of the individual. Classical republicanism is upon the viability of the political community and the citizens possessing civic virtue and being devoted to the common good. So these 2 strands are woven together in the first unit, and they are woven throughout the rest of the text, which deals with the second unit dealing with the formation of the Constitution, the Constitutional Convention, other units dealing with the creation of the government under the Constitution. Constitution is a blueprint for the government, and then going into the rights and responsibilities of citizens, and then also the place of the United States in world affairs and international relationships and so forth. We have been, from 1965 to 1986, we have been doing programs on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. One of my colleagues, Margaret Branson, a really very prominent educator, said to me that the center, because this was the forthcoming bicentennial of the Constitution in 1987, that we should develop some sort of nationwide competition on the Constitution. So I thought I would like to do something like that, but I didn't want to have a competition where it was just the best and the brightest, just the elite. I wanted a competition that included everybody, that had an egalitarian focus. So and having testified in Congress a number of times, I thought that that type of hearing might be a very interesting way to develop a competition. So the competition now, as I mentioned, the curriculum focuses upon 6 units from the philosophical underpinnings of the Constitution and so forth. So we decided that once students had studied the entire text, we would have entire classes of students participate. They should be a regularly rostered class, not a class specially cooked up for the competition, which has not always worked, unfortunately, and that all students should participate, and it should be divided into groups, and 6 groups, each becoming an expert on one of these units. And then we would give them overarching questions on those units. They would develop a 4-minute prepared statement, much as one develops in Congress, although typically it's a 5-minute statement, and then respond to questions from panels of judges to determine the depth of their understanding of what they've been studying. And so the competition is structured so these types of competitions theoretically take place at school level, school district or congressional district level, state level, and national level. And that's how we conceptualized and structured the competition. It turns out, well, the students, by the way, by the time they get to the national competition, they are so well versed in the particular area in which they've studied that I, who created the program, would not want to debate those issues with them because they are just really amazing. In fact, probably 98% of the people in the United States couldn't hold a candle to them. One of the things that is also, I think, most remarkable and important about the competition is that students tend to learn to work together as teams, and they cooperate, and it's in their interest that every student on their team and every student in the class does their best. They're not competing with each other, they're competing with another class. So it was interesting, quite some time ago, I think it was Buzz Aldrin, or one of the first astronauts who went to Long Beach Unified School District, went back to the schools, was talking with the people there and the students, and he said what a wonderful education that he had at Long Beach schools. They had a very good program. Said the one thing he didn't learn was how to work together as a member of a team. And that's what these students learn. And one of the I think the benefits is they're a member of a team. They all want the others to succeed. They help each other, but they are diverse. They're diverse politically. They're diverse as far as religious beliefs, culture, customs, and so forth. And they learn to appreciate each other, and it develops greater tolerance and mutual understanding, which I think is one of the best outcomes of the program. Our We the People program, since it was first initiated, relies upon a nationwide network, nationwide implementation network. So in every state, we have a coordinator who runs the program in the state. Those coordinators are typically, not typically, they are sometimes from school systems, sometimes from state departments of education, sometimes from nonprofit organizations involved in civics and government education, sometimes from universities. We just identified people that have the capacity and the connections within their state to implement a statewide program. And then in each state, their responsibility has been to identify a similar person, a similar leader in each congressional district. So the program is organized by state. We have a minimum of 50 state coordinators. In some cases, there's more than one coordinator at the state level. And then in every congressional district, we have one coordinator, or in some cases, 2 or 3, depending upon the programs that they're implementing. So that's a nationwide distribution and implementation network. And the responsibility of the coordinators in the congressional district level has been to recruit each year a minimum of 30 teachers to take part in the program and to give them the orientation necessary to be able to implement the curriculum in their classrooms. Anecdotes. One thing that's interesting is one group of kids went to see Chief Justice Berger one time, and he was the chair of our National Advisory Committee, and we were the featured program of the Commission on the Bicentennial. And the kids went to see him, and they asked him, "What do you think are the most important words in the Constitution?" And he immediately said, "We the people." We the people are the ultimate source of authority of the government and so forth. And the kids understood that. This is, again, off the wall, but free association now. Anyway, I'm in a suburb of Russia, of Moscow, in a middle school with a teacher who has our textbook and picture the Christie painting on the wall of the signing of the Constitution. And the class is divided into 4 groups. One group studied the U.S. Constitution, another the German Constitution, another the Russian Constitution, I think another the French Constitution. And the teacher said to the girls, one of the groups, the group that studied the American Constitution, "What do you think are the most important words in the American Constitution?" And this Russian 12 or 13-year-old girl said, "We the people." Because it means that the people are the ultimate source of authority. The government is the servant, not the master of the people, and so forth. Powerful, powerful ideas. Well, I mean, just to preface this, I think the program should be given to every student. If you're going to have limited resources, limited time to devote, the students in the most affluent, advanced schools tend to get a fairly good education in civics and government. They have teachers who are unfortunately more well prepared than the teachers in the central cities and the high needs area. So, and yet the high needs students certainly have the capacity to perform at a very high level in this program. As a matter of fact, there was a teacher in, I believe it was Queens, who had a class of high needs students. They were all African Americans. Some of them lived in homeless shelters. And this gifted teacher taught that class so well that they won the New York State competition for, I believe, 2 years in a row and placed high in the national competition. So these are kids from the most disadvantaged background. They had never been on an airplane before, never stayed in a hotel. They had to get people to volunteer and raise money for them to buy clothes to wear to Washington. And they came here and they performed, and they outperformed students from the affluent suburbs in Long Island and other areas in New York and upstate New York. So they have the capacity, they just need the opportunity. And this program is giving high-need students that opportunity, and they are responding extremely well.